Good morning, true crime friends. How you doing? Listen, Brian Walsh, trial day 6. So much happened yesterday. It was kind of a weird day, and there was a lot of medical type information, also shopping information. So if you are triggered by shopping or medical things, we'll see you next video. Although there is absolutely nothing graphic in this video. Okay, so look. Oh wait. We're going to get into it, but first, you know what you need to do. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it out, and if I could get a couple of those hypes that you got in your pocket, I would appreciate that. YouTube gives you 3 hypes a week, and if I could get a couple of those, oh, I would be so grateful. Me and you, we're going to get to 30,000 subscribers together. Brian Walsh, trial day 6. So the medical examiner is still on the stand under direct examination. And he was just like, over there at the lab, we had the rug, and on the rug, we found all kinds of stains and blood clots and white clumps of stuff. There was hair and a Gucci charm. Now, remember, we saw pictures of Anna wearing a Gucci charm, I think on Instagram or one of her social media pages. Then on cross-examination, Lord, this defense attorney, sir, hi. We know you have absolutely nothing to work with in this case. That ignorant Mama Luke that is your client, I know he is wearing you out. He is making you pull out every trick from your trick bag. And so I appreciate your efforts, although it looked a little bit crazy. At some point, you just look straight crazy. He was like, so, hey there, medical examiner, hey, in judicial language, he was like, it's your job to determine a cause of death, right? And the medical examiner, who was the epitome of unbothered, he was just like, yes. And he was like, okay, so when people die of SUDS, that's sudden unexpected death syndrome. I called it SUDS. His mama called them sudden infant death, but sudden unexpected death. I'm calling it SUDS because, it's less harsh on my delicate sensibilities. He was like, so people could die of SUDS from choking, and the medical examiner was like, yes. And then he said, a fear, and I was like, that's ridiculous. No one gets scared to death. And the medical examiner was like, yes. Okay, I need to know every single thing. Wait, if you go to a haunted house, you could be literally scared to death. I had no idea. Like, boo, ah! And then, could you sue somebody? Is that homicide? I'm so blown away by the you could be scared to death thing, but we have a lot more to talk about. And then he was like, right, they could also die from autoerotic asphyxiation. Sir, hi, lawyer, listen, we know that you don't have a lot to work with, but why are we talking about him? Are we insinuating that Brian Oochie-coochied Anna to death? First of all, we've seen him. I don't think he's capable of that. I'm surprised he could Oochie her coochie at all, if you want to know the truth. Also, okay, bear with me. Remove your children from the room. In my mind, when Brian gets up off the bed, there's just a grease spot there. And now you won't be able to unsee it either, but he just looks so gross and greasy to me. I'm like, And then he was just like, okay, so there's lots and lots of causes of unexpected death, even though it's rare. So it's either one or the other. Either there's lots of cases or it's rare. And the doctor was like, it's rare. But when it happens, there are many causes, blah, blah, blah. So you could have a heart problem. There could be a you could take some meds or something, some toxicology, and that could cause you to, slip the surly bonds of this earth. There's positional asphyxiation. That's like when Sarah Boone put George in that suitcase and zipped him up and wouldn't let him out. He was in the wrong position, and so he couldn't breathe. And I was like, okay, these are all things that we've basically heard of, aside from that being scared to death thing. And then he was just like, the lawyer was like, now, I'm probably going to mispronounce this. And I was like, oh, you are definitely going to mispronounce a bunch of medical stuff because you're a lawyer and not a doctor. And then he was just like, what about, and he was giving acronyms and then saying the words. And the medical examiner sat there. I was like, I'm not sure that what you said is actual words. It sounded like he was over there casting spells. He was just like, what about the blobbity blah with the bloopity bloop? And I was like, I think you made that up. y'all. And then he's like, and then there's this one disease. I was like, he just Googled. What are the reasons that people could die suddenly? A tree could fall on you. You could get hit by a bus. You could fall down a flight of stairs. All of those are sudden and unexpected. He's like, and then there's this one disease where the person dies unexpectedly and then they speak. Sir, listen, were you talking to Chat GPT? I feel like you were talking to Chat GPT. You know Chat GPT be making stuff up though, right? When you get stuff off Chat GPT, you can ask it to cite its sources so it gives you better information, but sometimes it makes up the sources too. He said there is some illness where people die suddenly and then speak. I don't think you can speak while you're dead. Also, I'm not a medical doctor. Mr. Tipton, defense attorney, you sound crazy as hell. I loved it. And then he was like, right. And then there's this other one where people die and then they keep moving. What? Like a chicken? Like a chicken with its head cut off. You're saying that somebody could unfortunately unalive another, or they could just pass away. They off at the endless heaven buffet, but their body is still here moving. Are we talking about twitching, like a little eyebrow or something twitches? Are we talking about just like they walking around and making dinner? I have questions and I need to go back and watch so I can find out the name of the illness, disease, whatever, where you die but keep talking. Based on that, I could be dead right now but still making YouTube videos. Y'all, I have no idea what this man was talking about. Oh, it tickled me so much. And then finally he sat down because he ran out of stupidity. He was like, I'm reaching down in my bag of stupid tricks and it seems to be empty now. So I guess I'm gonna have to shut up. Sir, thank you. To that, me and all the people of the internet say thank you, but low key, keep talking. What else did Chat GPT tell you? Oh, I know they told you some good stuff. Is there one where you die and then you drive around town 3 times and then you come back and park the car, parallel parking, because that's harder. And then they discover you dead. He just was making stuff up. Anyway, then one of Anna's coworkers took the stand and she's like, okay, I work at Tishman Spear. I hired Anna. She was really quite lovely. Her salary was $220,000 a year plus a bonus. And then her life insurance was twice that. This is something that I noticed, right? First of all, please hold. The first time I watched this portion of the case, I was over there on Recovery Addict. Good morning, Recovery Addict and the Recovery Addicts. And all the chat was like, what? 220 plus a bonus? That's a lot of money. Oh my God, are they hiring? Then I had to go do some stuff and I came back and I was watching it on Emily D. Baker. You know, we love EDB, our queen. And so when they got to that part of the conversation, they were like, this is her salary. This is her bonus. The chat dead silent. Like, yeah, that's what people make, which makes me think, is EDB's chat richer than Recovery Addict's chat? It just was curious to me. Anyway, so Anna was being paid $220 plus bonus, and her life insurance was 2 times her salary, 2 times her base salary. And the beneficiary was Brian and the kids. How much you want to bet the kids ain't getting none of that money? And so Brian had reached out to the company. This coworker is the one who took the call, went over to Anna's house. And Brian was just like, Anna thinks that whenever she goes missing, I look for her too soon. So I don't want her to be mad at me. Sir, we now know you had killed this lady and she was already dead. She was probably mad about that. She was definitely more mad about you unfortunately unaliving her than she was about you calling down to the job. But he was just like, I don't want to embarrass her or embarrass myself by looking too soon. And the coworker was like, I'll go to Anna's house and look around. And so she goes to Anna's house. She really didn't find anything. And then so she looped in the guy, like the head of security. And the head of security was like, hey boy, hey, I used to be in the Secret Service. I know secrety and servicey things. And so call the police immediately. This is the 4th. You haven't seen your wife since the 1st? Haven't heard from her? Call the police. And then Brian cries. Okay. He's like, you mean the police are going to find out what I did? Oh my God. I don't think he was crying because his wife was missing, but that is just me. Then Mr. Tipton got a fresh bag of tricks. Y'all, he clearly has a refillable bag of ridiculous theories. And so he's just like, hey, so you work for Tishman Spear. And then he spent the next 20 minutes slandering Tishman Spear. I was like, look, I used to work in a Tishman building. It was an old building. It was lovely. They kept it nice. Ooh, they had these little lounges called Zoe. The way I loved Zoe. They had these little nap rooms. Anyway, So he was like, right, she worked at this building and that building. Did one of those buildings have Legionnaire's disease? And I was like, Tishman Spear. Okay, he just got all your dirty business out here in the streets. And then he was just like, and didn't the tenants complain about Anna? And then the work lady was like, I mean, the tenants complained about everything. He was like, wasn't it a high-end building, but y'all was keeping it real raggedy and stuff? People was getting sick from Legionnaires. I was just like, okay. He was like, didn't the FBI arrest some people down at your building? Okay, what is happening in these high-end apartment buildings? And then there was a debate. Is it high-end? Is it not high-end? I don't know. It costs DC money to live there. It's expensive. Okay, fine. And you know, this lady was just like, this Mama Luke gonna get me fired. He out here telling all our dirty business on Beyonce's internet. What is happening right now? But ultimately, the coworker was like, Anna had no part of that. Sir, what the heck are you doing? That's not what she said, but that's the spirit of what she was given. And I was right there with her. Anyway, so she got off the stand. And then we went through the parade of purchases. Now, keep in mind, Brian Walsh bought a lot of stuff. Most people are murdering on a budget. Oh, he was not murdering on a budget. He had credit cards and he was just like swipe, 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 tap, swipe. He was buying everything. Never, ever have I seen any unfortunate unaliver buy this much stuff to help cover up a crime. First, he went to Walgreens where he purchased Band-Aids that had the anti-itch. So I was like, wait. Because I'm a true crime fan, I'm putting together from my contacts clues. January the 1st, he's buying Band-Aids to cover up the cuts and scrapes or what the cuts on his hands. We know from the police video that there were at least 2 cuts on his hands, which led me to believe, did he, because commonly, if there's some stabation as a cause of death, then the knife gets slippery and you cut your hand. When I saw those Band-Aids, I was like, oh, he killed her with a knife. Oh, that's why he had to finish disassembling her. Now, I was not there. I obviously don't know what happened, but I personally, Kathy the Gossip, have decided, allegedly, I don't know what disclaimer I need right here, but just insert your own, choose your own adventure, child. I believe that he killed her. It was the scumbag in the knife with the bedroom. It was a scumbag in the bedroom with the knife. We have solved this game of Clue, and there's more hints to that later on, but we'll get to that in a minute, right? So, in my opinion, he used them. He had to go buy Band-Aids. Probably at the house, he has like some Blue's Clues Band-Aids or something. I don't know who current kitty references are. My children are all grown. Anyway, so he got the Band-Aids with the anti-itch. Okay, cool, because he was maybe worried about getting contaminated or something, getting an infection. Also, he looked up like how to get HIV off a knife. Can you kill HIV on a knife? Was he afraid? He Googled that. Was he afraid that because his wife was having an affair that she might have had a bloodborne illness like HIV or something else? Sarah. Anyway, then the liquor store people got up there and they're like, he's a good customer. We know him real good. He's here all the time. Are y'all saying that Brian has an issue with alcohol? He fancied himself a wine connoisseur, so maybe he was there all the time. I don't know. Anyway, New Year's Day, the liquor store was closed, but Brian is seen on the video cameras pulling into the liquor store and throwing things away in the liquor store dumpsters. Okay, there's no cross-examination because Mr. Tipton's bag of tricks had run dry at that point. Okay, then Brian next goes to Lowe's because remember, he got free time and money and he's just like, okay, I'm going to buy this and this and this. Loads up his cart with a ton of stuff. Why isn't Lowe's a mandated reporter? Y'all, if you see somebody down there at the murder aisle, the self-checkout needs to be like, oh, bleach and cleaners and buckets and a hacksaw, you say, boop, 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 boop. It should automatically just dial 911. Please follow this Mama Luke. Take extra pictures of his face because we're going to need that for the wanted poster. Anyway, he goes to the self-checkout where there are so many more cameras than at the... Regularly, you just go to the cash. Well, okay, first of all, I always use self-checkout because, you know, the rest of it is all too people-y for me. But at the self-checkout, there's a million cameras because they want to make sure you're not stealing. Had you just gone to a cashier, maybe that cashier remembers you, maybe they don't. Outside at self-checkout, they're going to get a lot of really good pictures of you. He spent $463 on materials to finish his home project. I would say home improvement, but his home was not improved by this situation. Then he goes to another Lowe store, and on that video, he's there with his child. And his little kid, you know kids, the little gun where you could it's like a boop, boop, that kind of gun where you could like scan all the stuff. The little kid is like, give me your stuff. I'm gonna scan everything in this store. Boop, boop, daddy, how much are you worth? Boop, oh, look, nothing. Anyway, so the kid was scanning stuff. He bought a trash can. Okay, again, he goes to the self-checkout. This time when he sees himself in the camera, he's like, oh, let me fix my hair. Sir, I'm gonna need you to calm down. Next, he goes to CVS where he buys 5 bottles of peroxide. Before they said 13 different kinds of peroxide, but okay, only 5 bottles of peroxide. That's still a lot of peroxide. Although peroxide does a really, really good job of getting rid of blood stains. I hope you need that information for when you cut your hand cooking in the kitchen and not for when you disassemble somebody. Later at Stop and Shop, they had a lady up there like, he bought 3 bottles of ammonia. Sir, what are you doing? We know what you're doing now, but you look super duper sus. 3 bottles of ammonia, you said. Okay. Then after all the store people left, and I was like, what is the grand total of all these purchases? Obviously, this crime is going to cost him his freedom and his life, but how much did he spend? That's a lot of money. And his mama probably paid them bills anyway. Hang on. Then they had the crime lab dude up there. Again, another unflappable law enforcement professional who was just like, hi, my name is whatever his name is. He looked like he was 12 years old, but also everybody looks young to me. Y'all, even my doctors and stuff. I'm like, did your mom and them know you here? Because you seem real young. Anyway, the crime lab people came in to inspect the house, and they found a knife in the cereal cabinet. Now, look. Like you have a refrigerator, right? Up above the refrigerator, there's a cabinet. That's the cereal cabinet at my house. At every house I've ever lived in my whole life, that was always the cereal cabinet. So I assume that cabinet is just called the cereal cabinet, although I imagine you could keep something that's not cereal up there, but that's what I do. Anyway, so up in that cabinet, up above the refrigerator, they found a knife, a very, very large knife that was real beat up and had blood on it. Brian, is that the knife you used to do the main wet works? I suspect that it is. And then they looked at the basement floor. They found blood down there. They found the bedroom floor looked a little sketch. And so they were like, oh, we're going to have to take this. And he was like, wait, what? They took up a big piece of the floor. This is a rental house. They definitely not getting their deposit back. Their deposit is gone. Then they pulled the trash. Remember when they pulled all the trash from the apartment complexes or whatever from where Brian's mom lives? And they found pieces of rug that had blood on it. They found blood on carpet, slippers, a saw, a hacksaw, a hatchet, wire snips, and a scrub daddy sponge. Listen, this is a terrible crime. All of this is just an abomination. But to see that scrub daddy with the big smile on his face. Hi, people who don't know what scrub daddy is. A scrub daddy is a sponge that's shaped like a circle and it looks like a face, right? There's 2 holes for eyes and then a little smiley thing for the mouth. And you're supposed to stick spoons in the smile to scrub them clean. That's what they say. That's not what I do with my spoons. Actually, I don't do dishes. My husband does them, but whatever. I don't think my husband is sticking the spoons in the scrub daddy mouth. But to see all this stuff with the big smiling scrub daddy, and I'm like, the things that scrub daddy has seen. This should be a scrub daddy with a face like this. But that's just me. Anyway, they found blood on a Tyvek suit, towels, and clumps of hair. It was terrible. I was like, okay, Mr. Tipton, we see all this very, very incriminating information. What you gonna get up here and say? He was like, hey there, crime scene guy. Hey, listen, there were cops in the house, right? Cops were in and out of the house and they weren't wearing protective gear. You mean when they thought it was a missing person case and they were just questioning him, trying to help him out while his kids ran around like a bunch of wild eeyoppies? That's my mama's word, a wild eeyoppie. That's some kids who don't know how to act. Anyway, he was like, those police officers were not wearing PPE, were they? No, but why should they? And he was like, there was white residue. I assumed that it was the cocaine, but no, it was all that baking soda that Brian wanted to make the house smell good. Sir, you are a creep, a weirdo, and an unfortunate unaliver. And Mr. Tipton was like, right, I mean, maybe the cops sprinkled that around. Sir, no. And again, niet, nine, nanka, no. Anyway, he was just like, and the floor was removed. You guys looked for blood, right? But you didn't find any. And they were like, right. We took up the floor, but we didn't find anything on it. You know, Brian was like, Google does work. I just put some peroxide and whatever else, and they couldn't find the blood. Yay me. You know he gonna be over there in prison after he gets convicted of this, writing a book. Look, when y'all get out of here, because clearly I'm going to be here for life. When y'all get out of here, if you put some peroxide and some bleach on the blood, they not going to be able to tell it's blood. But I'm just saying. So look, then trial day ended, but that is not where my research ended. Oh, no, dear friend. No. I got a little tidbit in my ear that there is a lawsuit between Diana Walsh, Brian's mom. Remember the lady who rented the house? Yeah, Brian's mom rented the house and was paying the rent. That landlord has sued Brian Walsh's mama. And I was like, wait, tell me every single thing. Okay, so the landlord, who looks like Colonel Sanders, I don't remember his government name, but just if I say the Colonel, you know I'm talking about the landlord, right? So the Colonel has sued Diana Walsh, Brian's mama, and the insurance company. And I was like, well, what he sue them for? The unfortunate unaliving that took place in his rental property? See, now Miss Diana had rented this beautiful house with a pool, and she told Colonel Sanders, look, I'm going to be recovering from an illness, so I'm going to live here, and my son and daughter-in-law and their 3 little kids are going to be my caretakers. Okay, first of all, that sounds like a lie on its face. I don't know these people, but I'm like, that don't sound right, okay? And so there was damage to the house. And I was like, okay, sometimes that happens when you have renters. That's why you take a security deposit. And so this complaint says, the lawsuit says that Diana Walsh and her family misused the house, they damaged the house, and they used it for unlawful purposes. And I was like, right, that unfortunate unaliving is very much an unlawful purpose. The landlord says, look, the dog, they kept that dog locked up in the backyard. They wouldn't let him back in, and he was scratching on stuff. You know how dogs do. So the dog damaged the exterior of the house and the yard. Apparently there was a bunch of holes punched in walls that weren't repaired. What? Okay, now look, some of that might have been the kids, but I'm like, did Brian have rage? Were those kids allowed to run wild? If you recall from the original interview Brian Walsh gave, the whole time he was like, stop. Don't put jelly on the cat. Don't punch your brother. Stop farting on people. You know what I'm saying? He just kept having to yell at his kids. But that is what parent life is like. Look, we raised 4 sons, child. The mayhem that was this house for many years. And they had very young kids, 2, 4, and 6, something like that. 3 little boys that were clearly allowed to run wild. Holes in the walls, holes in the ceiling. How that hole got punched in the ceiling, I will never know. Something tells me the holes in the walls probably came from a Tonka truck. And then we find out in this complaint that there's a rock wall in the backyard. Somebody, probably them kids, was removing rocks from the rock wall and throwing them into the pool, damaging both the rock wall and the pool. I'm always suspicious when a tenant wants to prepay the rent a whole bunch of months in advance. I'm like, what you gonna do after this 6th month? Are you just gonna abandon the place? Are you gonna leave? Are you gonna be a squatter? I have questions. It makes me super duper sus. Anyway, and so the landlord goes on to allege that Brian has unfortunately unalived Anna in the house, and that he I'm like, I don't want to say the M word too many times. He red rummed her in the bedroom and cut her up in the basement. And I was like, well, this is tea, because that is not necessarily what they're saying at the trial. Brian is saying she died of natural causes. The state is saying, we don't know what happened, but it was super duper bad, and it probably happened in that bedroom. The landlord was like, I am not under any confidential anything. He unfortunately unalived the heifer in the basement, in my opinion, with a knife, and then he disassembled her in the basement. And I haven't issued an insurance claim. Have you ever had to call your insurance company for a claim that was like out of the ordinary? I have had this experience. My husband had an accident with a lawnmower and his foot. It was a very bad situation. So he was in the hospital and there was a lot of bills. Every time I call the insurance company, I'm like, okay, the date of the event, blah, 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 this. And then when they would get down to what actually happened, they were like, oh, and then you could hear them. They would have me on hold, but not on mute. You could hear them telling their other coworkers, what was the conversation at that call center when they got this claim? They're like, yes, we see there's damage to the pool. There's damage to the bedroom floor. And then wait. He killed her in the bedroom. Please hold. Susie, can you listen on this call? Y'all, the hot goss in that call center. You know everybody's talking about it. Oh, you know nothing is getting done over there at Liberty Mutual or whoever this insurance company is. They all watching this trial. Like, I remember when this claim came in. Remember? Oh, that's the scuzzy Mama Luke who did it. Anyway, so the landlord, Colonel Sanders, is saying he had to decontaminate the house and it was very expensive. Of course it was. In addition to the regular damage that these people did is the whole red rum situation that you really have to deal with. He said he had to clean, he had to repaint, he had to the police removed a portion of the bedroom floor. The landlord is saying he had to take up the whole bedroom floor and the subfloor to get rid of the blood. The police did not find blood on the subfloor, but the landlord did. I need to know every single thing. Are there pictures? Did the insurance company use luminol? Who you call? Service Pro? Service Pro does that like it never happened. I've seen those ads and stuff. I need to have lunch with this landlord. Landlord, hey, Colonel Sanders, listen. When you get back from Bermuda, because he likes to go down to the Caribbean, when he gets back from Bermuda, can me and you have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, something like that? A Mai Tai? I don't even drink, but I'll give me a virgin Mai Tai so I can just and be like, and then what happened? And then what you find? And then what she say to you? And then what you say to her? I want to know every single thing, but I'm nosy like that. Anyway, they had to repaint the whole basement. The police caused damage by spraying luminol on everything. The house came partially furnished. It had luminol on the mattresses, on the walls, on the floors. The pool filter had to be removed, I guess because they was trying to see if they filtered Anna through the pool. I have no idea. And then Diana Walsh walked through the house and was just like, I mean, there appears to be a little bit of damage, but she refused to pay for any of it. Can you imagine? This lady comes from old rug money. She comes from a Persian family, and she got long money. But her son has destroyed this house, and she's like, what does any of this have to do with me? I did not, unfortunately, unalive the trollop. I will be leaving now. Come on, let's go. And so in my mind, she takes her little dog that she carries under her arm and her 2 butlers and her driver, and then she leaves. I don't know that part is true, but it feels true in my spirit. Anyway, the landlord complains that he cannot rent or sell the house because nobody want to live there. And the insurance company came and had a look around and was like, right, the insurance adjuster is here. Let's take a look. Denied. Y'all. The insurance company is like, no. First of all, you nasty. Second, I don't know why you rented to these people. Everything about them looks super duper sus. No, this is not covered under your policy. The red rumming of somebody taking up floors. No, you're not getting a dime from us. And so I was just like, how does this case work out? Now listen, I know how this case works out, but you, my dear friends, are going to have to find out on your own what happens to the case of Colonel Sanders versus Brian Walsh's mama. Now listen, I found out about this story over there on the Emily Show podcast. I will link the Emily Show podcast that covers this story in the description box of this video. Go on over and give our girl EDB a shout. Give her some hypes, give her some likes, share it out. Look, you know I'm going to be sharing it out because the tea is scalding. Last but certainly not least, I have a question for you. This Brian Walsh, right? You've seen him. I've seen him. Our eyes are worse for the wear. I am a menopausal woman, a perimenopausal woman, and my nose is so sensitive, right? I feel like I smell everything. In my opinion, Brian Walsh looks like he stinks. Does he look like he stinks to you? I feel like every time I see him, I can smell him. I'm like, ooh, what is that? What is that? I have to light a candle whenever he's on the screen because I feel like he stinks. Just me? Please tell me in the comments below if you feel like Brian Walsh stinks. I'm not slandering this man. I am making a personal observation. In my opinion, he stinks. But I don't know that for a fact. Maybe you've smelled him and he smells delightful. You walk past him and there's no smell of bacon grease at all. Please let me know. In the meantime, please be safe out there. And you know how we do. I will see you next crime. Bye.